But I'm going to start because I'm going to, I mean, sort of go into Deadshot, which I thought was fantastic. I thought your performance was so great in it too. I mean,
Thank you so much, man.
the first introduction to the role, I mean, we see him kill a pregnant woman. So, like, generally, I'd call that kind of, getting off on the wrong foot with the viewer. But
You
there's
think?
but it's a fascinating thing, really, to start with a film and then say to the viewer, to the audience, like, right, here's your protagonist. Can you just recall the first time you read the script and your thoughts when you first read that kind of opening scene?
Yeah, no, where was I? I was actually in Pittsburgh. I was just finishing up Rustin, and I read it and I was like, oh, this is proper what we do at home so well. Keep it very kind of taut and tight and not know who you're going to be with. Very reality driven. It kind of brings me back to the days of doing like Kidulthood and even Yardy, like those films that are quintessentially British, where things are not always clean and clinical. So I was engaged with that, and also the fact that he didn't speak that much. So I was like, man, this is gonna have to be quite a like layered performance or layered kind of interpretation of what this person is going through, and also the fact that you don't really know who he is. And I think by the end of the movie, you don't truly discover it. And so that's very 70s to me. That's very kind of mean streets. That's very taxi driver. The bad lieutenant. These really flawed characters that we kind of go on a journey with. And I don't think those films get made so much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned obviously like he doesn't speak an awful lot. Is that when you get a script like that? Can that be quite an exciting proposition and challenge when you know it's going to be very internalized, or can that be quite daunting sometimes to know that you've kind of got to display everything without necessarily the kind of the use of dialogue in certain scenes?
It can be both. It can be both. You can look at it and go, okay, how am I really going to be utilized in this story? And then on the flip side, you go, okay, well, I have a chance to be very visceral and detail oriented and figure out why he's not saying that much. You know what I mean? I think what I've come to know, just getting older as a human being, we go through different chapters in our life where we're not necessarily the same iteration of what we were, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm not a person that changes that drastically. I've had events in my life and moments where I'm like, oh wow, I'm really quiet right now, and so this guy's living with a trauma, and I think this guy's living with a lack of knowledge of self, doesn't really know who he is. You know what I mean? So to me, it was an attractive proposition, especially with once I spoke to the Guards brothers, who are really detail oriented and very interested in my perspective.
Mm. I mean, but I got to say, even though like I mentioned that kind of early that sort of opening scene, I did find myself liking and rooting for the character as the film kind of went on. So why do you think that is? What do you think it is about this role that allows for the viewer to sort of like not hate the guy, I suppose?
Regret. I think people really understand the notion of regret, and I think Tempest, we quickly learn that he's a person that is a victim of circumstance in many ways. He's someone where I think as well, we all know we all get the feeling of the big brother that is, you know, playing chess with our life sometimes, and we sometimes feel a bit helpless to the circumstances of things. And so from that point of view, I think the audience can relate. As soon as you meet Mark Strong's character and he's in the fold and you realize, oh my God, this guy is going to take Tempest on a particular journey. Or even Colin's character, where it's like, okay, he's someone that was lent on in a particular direction, or maybe even indoctrinated. So yeah, I think those are the things that people can kind of relate to, and why they think, oh yeah, I can get on with it. And maybe, when I shave, I give a bit of pathos. I don't
Yeah. Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I love, yeah, well, it's a testament to your performance that is even possible for us to find something in him. So I remember that sort of humanity in him. So, but I was going to ask about, I mean, you mentioned the 70s kind of, I mean, obviously you can feel the kind of influences from 70s cinema, but I love the look and feel of London in the 70s in this. But
Hmm.
quite thinking it was shot in Scotland. The movies is crazy. I don't know how you it's
But
mad.
it kind of looks like London.
It does, it really
Um,
does.
it looks like London of that Glasgow. Yeah, it kind of looks like London of that era. Like, I'm an 80s, 90s baby, so not quite, but I do remember going, you know, we asked where I grew up. One of the places I went to school was East Acton. And
Mm.
East Acton kind of reminds me of that, you know, when you get into the East Acton station, at least it did back then, of like this kind of post-World War II environment that the country's still, you know, trying to find its new way and new language. So yeah, Glasgow captured that energy for sure. Yeah.
Did Deadshot come after Boxing Day for you? And if so, or if not that, just any projects, I'm interested to know. I wondered if they've come since, because I wanted to know if you found your relationship to your craft and to acting has changed since you've kind of sat in the director's chair. Does the shoot feel like different now at all?
100%. 100%. Deadshot did come after Boxing Day. Yeah, no, yeah. It is, you know what? I have a lot more uh empathy for what a director goes through and how much they have to see every intricate detail from start to finish. And so I guess as an actor, I'm so much more willing to listen. I mean, me and Idris Elba spoke about this a lot after doing Yardie. He was like, man, like I get where I've been like stressing directors. And you know, when you're an actor, you're focused on your particular instrument in the orchestra of the movie. And so from that point of view, for sure. And then you know, I've just become so much more interested in how to achieve the next version of my visions that I have. So I spend a lot of time with cinematographers and the camera teams and stuff like that.
I mean, I loved Boxing Day so much. Have you got any ideas to write and direct again? Is that something you'd like to pursue more in the
Yeah,
future?
just finished my next draft, the next draft of my next movie.
Mm.
It's yeah, this is something, you know, God willing, I'd be able to do for the rest of my life.
Mm.
I'm in love with writing, directing. You know, as a dual craft. You know, I love that. Me and my writing partner have just written this next movie we're doing with Film 4, and it's a bit of a saga, and it's a big kind of like it's a much bigger film than Boxing Day. It takes a different direction to what I've done previously, but with the base levels of what we achieved in Boxing Day as well. So I'm very excited about it. I cannot wait to be back behind that seat. Yeah, man, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, because I mean, you mentioned on Deadshot, you kind of, you know, maybe spending time with a cinematographer and stuff like that. Is that something that's come about quite through acting, that you kind of realised this passion for maybe doing stuff behind the lens? Or do you think even from when you were younger, from when you were a kid, you know, for example, was it always something that you wanted to maybe do one day?
100%. Yeah, no, it was always my left arm and my right arm, and I was using my right arm to get my left arm working. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I grew up in like a big family, and so actually there's a footage of me floating around on, I think, on Instagram that I found while on the promotional tour for Boxing Day, which was me at 11 years old saying that, you know, I want to act, I want to direct, I want to produce, you know, and so this is something I've always kind of I've been into and done, and yeah, no, I've been doing short films since 2010. You know, I did a short film in 2010 called Drink, Drugs, and KFC, and a lot of the young actors that are now doing really well, Samson Kao, Keita Sterling Williams, William Sterling, they were in that, you know, Aaron Fontaine. So no, I've always loved directing, and it's always been at the seat of my soul. And so I'm just lucky enough to have been given the opportunity. And now I'm going to rock on and do more, man. Yeah.
Because I was looking, I mean, reading your, because obviously the extent of my research, obviously, is Wikipedia bios, but it says when you were a kid, you were in Oliver. And I just, because we're roughly the same age, and I
How
queued,
old are you?
I'm 34. So, but I
Yeah.
think in terms of like, so in terms of going to
Errors. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, to audition for like a player's kids, we probably would have been 3 or 4 years apart. So
Yeah.
well, I queued for ages to do this audition because I wanted to be the Artful Dodger, and I got near the front and I burst into tears, and my mum took me home. So I didn't actually ever do the audition. So I wanted to ask, who did you play? Did you wasn't Artful Dodger, was it? Did you take my role?
No, I didn't, bro. I told you, I never got to play Artful Dodger, man. You look like Artful Dodger as well.
That's what the kids at school used to say to me. That's why I went for
No,
it.
we should find a way of maybe doing, I don't know, like a little short for like, I don't know, charity, and you play the Artful Dodger. I believe in those dreams coming true, man. Fuck it up. All right, no, I played Han Walker, who's a character that listen, I've got the footage from that. Someone, one of the mothers recorded the footage back in the day, and so I have the footage from me being in that. And man, I'm sorry to say, Stefan, you missed out, man. That shit was
No,
electric.
I look good. It did look good.
Consider yourself. You remember the fucking moves as well, which is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Weird, because I did this couple of ones at school, and I always remember the moves and the songs and stuff.
Yeah.
It's well, if you ever do get around to doing a short of Oliver, which I can't imagine you.
Yeah, we do like a 5-minute skit for charity.
Yeah. But my final question then, it's just because you mentioned about a dream role. I mean, obviously, I wanted to ask about you. I mentioned Rustin in the film, and you're playing Martin Luther King. I just wondered how it was. I mean, literally stepping into the shoes on a set and playing a role of that kind of historical significance, and about how you kind of found your way to that role. Did you use? Because obviously, you got people like David Oyelowo who did a great job of it. Did you kind of use the man himself, other cinematic iterations? How did you kind of find your version of that man?
It's a great question. So, I mean, the short answer is that I watched everybody's version of it. I actually called David Oyelowo and I asked him for Liz Himmelstein, who worked on him with the voice, because the voice is such an important thing. And then I just really dug deep into. I worked with this lady, Diana Castle, who does research with me, and we just dug deep into who he was in terms of the information that was the basis of who he was. So I did less watching of King himself, because that can be so daunting, and just more kind of more research into the basis of which made him who he was. So the writers he listened to, the fact that Rustin influenced his non-violence perspective, and then spent a lot of time on the speech that I have a dream speech, which I say in the movie. It was yeah, and then really surrendering to the vibe of him, and staying in character for a lot of the time. And yeah, it's really special, man. Like what it's very strange, if you're allowed, when you do certain characters, when you play certain parts, you are given a moment to really surrender to their way of living. I did it with Yardi, and I really felt a change in me as a person from that role. And it's very similar to Martin Luther King. I felt a change in me as a person, and I felt like on some level I got to experience or get to know his POV, at least my interpretation of his POV. So yeah, it was very special, man. Very special, yeah.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see it when it eventually comes out. Maybe we'll get to catch up again for that,
Yeah, that'd
hopefully.
be lovely.
Cool. All right, well, thank you so much for speaking to me today, and best
All
luck
right,
with
man, you take it
movie.
easy, bro.
Cool. Cheers. Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!